This is the DJI RS5. There are a lot of little improvements, but also some pretty big ones. One of my favorite features is the tracking module, and it's as simple as magnetically attaching it to the top of the gimbal. No wires, no connecting. There are some settings that you have to update that I'll get into a little bit later to get the best results. But let's start with the new improvements, starting with the bottom of the gimbal. The quick release tripod is a small but really great quality of life upgrade. Whenever you're opening one of the tripod legs, all of them open now. This sounds like a really small upgrade, but whenever you're like using it for a long time and you want to put it down, just opening one and then putting it down is a really nice quality of life upgrade. It sounds ridiculous to say, but it's pretty awesome. Do you want to like move over here a little bit more? Moving up, the USB-C port now has fast charging. 1 hour will get you 14 hours of battery life. And I believe the other RS gimbals had like 12 hours of battery life, which was fine for me, honestly, but I guess more battery life is always a welcome thing. Okay, I'm just gonna try to do this one really quick. Let me know if someone's like walking behind me. My second favorite feature of the RS5 Pro is the electronic briefcase handle. This is awesome because if you're using the gimbal in underslung mode and the gimbal like is off center and needs to be recentered, you can use the electronic briefcase handle to actually recenter. And you can also use the record button, the M button, or the joystick to move the gimbal around too. When I'm using any gimbal in briefcase mode, I find myself putting one hand on the tripod and then one hand on the briefcase handle. I love that the electronic briefcase handle has the trigger to recenter the camera and the start and stop record button. The joystick and the M button are nice, but I find myself using the trigger and the record button all the time, so I love seeing them on the handle. That one worked. Try to go in there and shoot out. See if that looks cool. Come on through, come on through. Do you know how long we've been waiting for you? You're finally here. You're fine. Check out the frame, check out the frame. What do you think?
Oh,
does that look good?
Yeah.
You want to be on YouTube?
Sure.
There you go, perfect. Moving up is the screen. The next thing you'll notice is the giant bar on the right-hand side of the screen, and this is the Z-axis indicator. Whenever you're moving the gimbal around, if you see no movement or if it's green, that means you're okay and you have steady footage. But if you see red going vertically, like up or down, that means you're gonna have some visible shake from the Z-axis in your footage, and you may want to actually reshoot that. Man, this is the difference between shooting in your nice cozy office and like going into the real world to make a YouTube video. I'm trying something different with this video. If you like this, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you think I should just stay in my office and not get distracted by dogs and people. Bluetooth isn't really a new feature with the Ronin gimbals, but now you can use Sony, Canon, and Panasonic and Fuji cameras as well. I don't have an up-to-date list, but they did mention that you can use Panasonic and Fuji cameras now. Do you think they'll let us go into that room and shoot out? That would be a sick shot. The follow mode switch is not a new feature, but I like that they kept it on the side of the gimbal that is like easy to access. Most of the time I'm in pan follow mode, but if I find like a unique shot and I want to go to FPV really quickly, I can just switch it over to FPV and then get a more creative shot. And I love the flexibility of being able to go back to pan follow or pan tilt follow really easily. I don't know if any of this audio is going to be usable. Quickly going through the different follow modes, we're going to start with pan tilt follow, and this will, if you just walk behind you, Ashley, and we're active tracking Ashley. And in pan tilt follow, if I move the camera, I'm panning right now, it'll follow her like this. But also if I move the camera up, it will tilt to follow her. Okay, hold on, stop. If I go to pan follow mode and start tracking her again, it will, okay, you can start walking. Panning follows her, but moving the camera up, the camera will not tilt to follow her. Now we can go back the other way. And last we have FPV, and FPV is actually not supported in the active track. Like if you try to, let me try to film this with my glasses here. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see this, but we're in FPV mode now. And if I try to start active track on Ashley, it'll say active track is not supported in FPV mode. So just to kind of show you what FPV mode does, actually if you start walking, you can use the roll axis and the tilt axis, and you can get some really creative shots, but you are kind of in control of the gimbal a little more. So you have to pay attention to your framing. This isn't the best example, but just trying to explain the possibilities of FPV mode. With this next feature, I'm honestly surprised it took DJI this long to come up with this. It is the fine adjust dials on all of the axes on the gimbal. Before, it was just on the base plate, and you could adjust the camera like using the dial, and it would go really fine, like forward or backwards. And I found myself sometimes when I was doing like quick lens swaps and had to rebalance the gimbal, it would be really difficult, and I would like almost over correct one of the, you know, if I was doing like the roll axis, I would put the roll axis too far one way when I was going from like a, you know, a 35mm G Master to a 50mm G Master. It's really not that big of a weight difference in the lens, so it should be small and easy to make that adjustment. But if you overcorrect it, you're almost starting at square one again. It's easy. A little more this way. Finally, onto my favorite upgrade. It is the enhanced tracking module. This tiny little camera magnetically attaches to the top of the arms of the RS5, and with no cables or other setup, it just attaches to the gimbal, and you can see a live feed on the back of the gimbal to use the tracking. There are a couple settings that you have to really get right to get the proper tracking settings that you want. So let's dive into those settings right now. Swiping from the left side of the screen gets us to the live view, and active track settings are on the bottom left. The first setting is what I mean by the gimbal working with you or against you. Adjusting the composition of the subject will be in the center or where it is currently framed. The default is center, but I prefer current framed. If I want something to be framed in the center, I will just align them in the center and use the trigger to activate the active track. And if I want them to be like on a third or, you know, in a more creative frame, then I can get there and I don't have to switch between settings here. I just have to consciously remember, like if I want them to be in the center, start with them in the center and the gimbal will take over from there. Next is active track speed. This just depends on what you're shooting. For most things, I keep it on medium, slow for slower reveal type shots, and fast for cars or like running. Indicator light, when the tracking module is on and not tracking, the light is red. When the tracking is enabled, the light turns green. Gesture settings, I just keep mine at the default. When it comes to updating the settings, I think the most important setting is the camera calibration view. Since the tracker is not seeing through the lens of your camera, making sure the tracking composition and your camera's composition are exactly lined up will allow you to keep this subject properly framed where you want it to be in your frame to avoid any drifting over time. For a lightweight setup, you could use your camera's app. In my case, I'm using the Monitor and Control app, and you can just use the gestures on the gimbal. If you raise your hand, Ashley, it should start to turn green and then walk, and it will just track you. I'm not even touching it at all. And if you raise your hand again, it'll stop tracking you. You can also use a peace sign, and that will begin recording. And then if you do it again, it'll stop recording. It's pretty awesome to just have an app and use gestures to control the gimbal and your camera. We have a orbit following Ashley, and I'm going to active track her, and I have autofocus going on the FX3. So I'm getting close to her. The gimbal's doing all the work. Pretty easy. Okay, I'm gonna walk a little farther away. And let me get a little closer. This one's just gonna have to go really quick. It seems like it handled it pretty well. What really impresses me is I'm just gonna walk forward and see if it will active track her. Walking forward, not moving at all. You're probably gonna see me in a second. That's actually pretty crazy. Okay, I have an idea and I wanna try to trick this thing. So I'm going to orbit, and I'm also going to tilt. Active track. We're recording, and I'm going to orbit, and I'm going to like just raise the camera up and see if it'll still work. Oh, no, that doesn't work because I'm in pan follow. All right, well, you have to be smarter than the gimbal. Now let's try to orbit and tilt. which is actually pretty crazy that this is able to active track her like this. And I'm like stomping around, so I'm interested to see how this footage is actually going to look. All right, now we have the running test. You ready?
Am I running?
You're running. Okay, now we're gonna try a walk and talk. I'm going to follow Ashley out here, and when she turns around right here and looks at the camera, I'm gonna walk backwards, and then I'm going to active track her to see how well the tracking picks her up. So rolling, action. Walking, and then go to the right. Okay, look at me.
Today, we are at the beautiful
Now we're active
Colonial
tracking
Arcade,
her.
downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Established in 1857. We have laundry services, if you need your laundry services.
Okay, turn around and walk backwards and talk.
It feels like you're in colonial Paris, but you're downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Like, where else can you get a feel like this?
Okay, that's good. I think it did pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, putting the gimbal into pan tilt follow, I'm gonna try a telescopic jib type movement. If we're active tracking Ashley and we lower the gimbal and we raise the gimbal, it should follow her still. We're gonna do this while she's walking. So if you just turn around and walk, now I'm just going to lift the gimbal up while I'm walking, kind of stomping around, so it might not be really stable. But let's do a really quick one now. That looks pretty cool, actually. Okay, now let's try this again. Let's try a really slow movement. And I'm walking backwards with a backpack. Okay, I'm kind of stomping around walking backwards. But it seems like this is looking pretty good.
So tired.
This tracking is crazy.
Wow, that is cool.
So it's still tracking Ashley, and I'm just walking in a circle. Distance tracking test. I'm curious if I just leave the gimbal right here and track Ashley, how far will it follow her? So we are tracking, and if you just walk down there, I'm not gonna move the camera, and we'll see how far it tracks her. So far, so good. Still going. I should have brought a tripod for this. Still going. It's still tracking her on the screen. It's still tracking, it's still green on the screen. Okay, stop and come back. It's still green, but I'm curious, like, is it green and it just lost her and it thinks it still has her? Or if she comes back, will it keep following her? Okay, it was still green, it never lost her, and stop where you started, and it still followed her. Pretty crazy. Okay, you go on that side. I'm not going to stop and start active track, and I'm just gonna walk next to you, and I'm gonna walk straight, and I'm just gonna let the gimbal move sideways. Okay, go. I haven't like retracked Ashley. I'm just walking. Now I gotta run. Oh my God. That's a good test. Okay, I'm not running anymore. You can keep running. Actually, keep running. This is a good test. See if it'll follow her. It's still green. I'm watching the screen. I'm kind of stomping around, so it's probably not the smoothest footage, but it's still green. It lost her for a second there. Red right there. Okay, it lost her right there. Okay, it lost her, but it picked her back up again. Just actually walk past me and see what it does. I'm not gonna move. Okay, actually pretty impressed with the tracking. Okay, active track test, pan tilt follow. Ashley is down here, and I'm just gonna walk sideways and rolling action. Okay, now we're gonna try to keep her in frame and go behind this railing while we're walking to see how this works. Okay, rolling action. Okay, start like this. Seems to be my autofocus on my Sony camera is the problem. It's losing the target There you go, but it picks it back up. So this is about the limitations here. The RS5 also has the vertical quick release plate. If you unlock this and you press, you can actually detach your camera from the gimbal and you can connect it, and you can go from horizontal to vertical shooting pretty quick. The one axis you will have to rebalance is this axis right here. There you go. Even uncalibrated, it's still green on the back of the screen here. In general, to get the best results, even if you're in proper balance, just always do the auto calibrate. It is M and the trigger. If you hold it down, it'll just start automatically. That's one of my favorite ways to get the smoothest footage with this gimbal. For using cinema lenses on the RS5, I was using the FX3, the DZO Film Octopus mount, baseplate rod, and focus motor for all of these tests. And all of the Blazar Remus lenses, the 1.5x anamorphics, balanced. The Vespid ones will balance depending on what lenses you're using. The 12 and 21 balanced perfectly, but if you're using longer cinema lenses, the focus motor kind of is throwing off the balance if it's too far out. So the longer Vespid ones really won't balance. They will balance, but when you start to move it around, the roll axis starts to turn like yellow or orange, like it's a warning. It's not red, but it's a warning. The Vespid 2s, however, were able to balance, and I could actually use those. The Typox Sumerices definitely balanced pretty easily. And the Arls, while the payload of the entire setup was like 6.5 pounds or 6.4 pounds, and the total payload capacity of this gimbal is 6.6 pounds, the Arls was just too heavy and all of the weight was too far out in front, so I couldn't put any counterweights on it to balance that because we'd be over the payload capacity. So while the Arls and the FX3 setup was under the weight was distributed in a way where it wouldn't balance on this gimbal. In general, I find myself using gimbals in a couple of different ways. The first one is either with a small cinema camera like the FX3 and an autofocus lens, and that's it. Or if I'm using cinema cameras, I have a lot more accessories like remote feeds and all this stuff. So the RS5 feels like the perfect gimbal for a small cinema camera and an autofocus lens, or even smaller cinema lenses. The payload restrictions are really the only downside of this gimbal that I could see, the way I use gimbals, but that could kind of be a benefit too, because if you only use smaller cinema cameras and autofocus lenses, then this gimbal actually weighs lesser because it doesn't have to have a higher payload capacity. So when you're using it, the extra, weight savings really does translate if you're using this for a long period of time. I'm going to have more RS5 content coming soon, so if you like this stuff, be sure to subscribe and like so YouTube will recommend you this stuff in the future. I think that's how that works. I tried to do something different with this video. I tried, getting out of my office to record this, so if you like this stuff, let me know how you like this format and if I should do more of this in the future. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.